It is the allegation that has set the entire nation on fire. A claim so heavy, so damaging, and so terrifying that it threatens to tear down the very walls of Asorok if proven true. We are not just dealing with rumors from the streets anymore. We are looking at a headline that has taken over the internet, a headline that accuses the highest office in the land of being complicit in the bloodshed that has turned our roads into death traps and our forests into slaughterhouses. The headline screaming across social media today, Monday, December 1, 2025, is Nigerian presidency. Tinubu is involved in terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. This is not a statement to be taken lightly, and if you are watching this, you need to understand that we are currently living through one of the most volatile political moments in our history. Today, we are going to surgically dissect this explosive accusation. We are going to look at why this narrative is spreading like wildfire, the specific figures within the president's inner circle who are under fire, and the damning negotiation policies that have led many Nigerians to ask, is the government fighting the bandits or are they dining with them? We are going to connect the dots between the accusations against Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, the threats from the Sahel military juntas, and the shocking ultimatum from the United States. To understand why people are pointing fingers at the presidency, we first have to look at the man standing right beside the president in the war room. The Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, has become the lightning rod for these accusations. Just months ago, his successor, the current governor of Zamfara State, Dauda Lawal, went on national television and openly accused Matawalle of sponsoring banditry. Governor Lawal didn't mince words. He alleged that during Matawalle's tenure as governor, government vehicles were purchased and distributed to notorious bandit kingpins like Bello Turji. Think about the gravity of that accusation. We are talking about a serving Minister of Defense being accused by a serving governor of arming the very people killing Nigerians. When a headline says the presidency is involved, this is exactly where the smoke is coming from. The critics are asking, if the president knows about these allegations, why is Matawalle still sitting in the Security Council? Why has he not resigned to clear his name? By keeping him in the cabinet, critics argue that President Tinubu is inadvertently shielding him and, by extension, implicating the presidency in the mess. But it goes deeper than just one minister. The accusation of involvement is also fueled by the federal government's controversial policy of negotiation. Just last week, we saw the National Assembly erupt in anger over reports that the federal government was holding secret talks with bandits to secure the release of hostages from the Kebbi and Niger State abductions. The House of Representatives screamed betrayal. They argued that you cannot negotiate with criminals without validating them. When the government sends intermediaries to the forest to offer money or concessions to kidnappers, they are effectively funding the enemy. This is where the accusation of involvement gains traction. If you are paying the bandit who kills your citizens, are you not in a way keeping him in business? The lawmakers warn that this approach legitimizes criminality and turns the state into a cash cow for warlords. The presidency, through Bayo Onanoga, defended this as a tactical necessity to save lives, claiming they wanted to avoid collateral damage. But for the average Nigerian watching terrorists flaunt their wealth on TikTok, this explanation rings hollow. It looks like complicity. We also have to talk about the international dimension because the world is watching and they are not smiling. The military juntas in Niger, Mali and Burkina Faso have dropped a bombshell of their own. They claim to have a list, a dossier of prominent Nigerian politicians who are aiding bandits in the Sahel region. They have threatened to expose these names. This threat hangs over Abuja like a dark cloud. If those names are released and they include people close to the president, the credibility of this administration will be shattered. It suggests that the rot is not just local. It is a cross-border criminal enterprise involving high-level players who are protected by their political offices. And let us not forget the pressure from the United States. President Donald Trump has designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern and threatened to come in guns a-blazing if the killing of Christians and innocent civilians does not stop. Trump's rhetoric implies that he believes the Nigerian government is either unwilling or unable to stop the carnage, or worse, that elements within the government are condoning it. When the US president calls your country disgraced and threatens to cut off aid because of your failure to secure lives, it reinforces the narrative that the government is part of the problem. The anger on the street is also fueled by the government's failure to name and shame the sponsors of terrorism. For years, we have been told that the government has a list of terrorist financiers. We heard it under the previous administration and we are hearing it now under President Tinubu. Special Advisor Daniel Boala recently promised that the names would be published in the coming days. But days have turned into weeks and weeks have turned into months. Nigerians are asking, who are you protecting? Why is it so hard to publish the names of people funding the death of our soldiers? Every day that list remains a secret is an another day the public believes that the sponsors are people too powerful to touch, people perhaps sitting in the very corridors of power. Now, let's look at the current security situation that makes these accusations so believable. We are in late 2025, and despite the president declaring a national security emergency, the bandits seem more emboldened than ever. We have the Lakurawa terror group seizing territories in Sokoto and Kebbi states, imposing their own laws, collecting taxes, and acting as a parallel government. How does a foreign terror group march into Nigeria, set up a base, and operate for months without being crushed? Critics argue that this level of impunity is impossible without some form of high-level collusion or deliberate negligence. They point to the fact that our military is one of the strongest in Africa, yet they seem hamstrung in the northwest. Is someone ordering them to stand down? Is someone profiting from the chaos? These are the dark questions that birth headlines like the one we are discussing today. We also have to analyze the political implications of these allegations. The opposition is seizing on this narrative to paint the APC government as the architects of sorrow. They are drawing parallels to the failure of previous administrations, but arguing that this is worse because the compromised individuals are allegedly known and yet retained. When you have a situation where the National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribado is flying to Washington to plead for help, while at home ministers are trading accusations of banditry sponsorship, it creates a picture of a disjointed, chaotic presidency that is at war with itself. This narrative of presidency involvement is dangerous because it erodes the last shred of trust between the citizen and the state. If the people believe their president is part of the banditry, they will stop cooperating with security agencies, they will turn to self-help, they will buy their own guns, and that is the road to Somalia. The presidency has tried to push back. They have called these accusations ignoble and psychological victories for terrorists. They insist that Tinubu is working day and night to fix the mess he inherited. But in a country where perception is reality, the optics of negotiating with bandits while ignoring the cries of victims is a PR disaster that no amount of press releases can fix. We also need to look at the specific case of the 37 hostages released in Katsina by a bandit leader who then stood up and preached about justice and oppression. When a bandit sounds like a freedom fighter and accuses the government of injustice, and the government does not immediately crush him but instead allows him to hold a press conference, it feeds the conspiracy theory that these bandits are political tools. Who is advising the president? Who is telling him that allowing bandits to become media stars is a good strategy? The tragedy of this headline is that it distracts us from the real heroes, the soldiers dying in the forest, the police officers holding the line in remote villages. When we say the presidency is involved, we risk demoralizing the rank and file who are putting their lives on the line. But the fish rots from the head. If the leadership is perceived as compromised, the morale of the troops collapses. We have seen reports of soldiers complaining about lack of equipment and poor welfare, while billions are allegedly funneled into security votes that are unaccounted for. This financial black hole is another aspect of the involvement. Is the war against terror being prolonged because it has become a business? Is there a war economy in Aso Rock that relies on the conflict continuing? As we wrap up this deep dive, the ball is firmly in President Tinubu's court. To kill this headline, he must do more than issue denials. He must act. He must clear the doubts about his cabinet members. If there is evidence against Matawale or anyone else, they must face the law. He must stop the secret negotiations that humiliate the state. He must publish the list of terror supporters, no matter whose name is on it. And most importantly, he must crush the Lakurawa group and the bandits with a decisiveness that leaves no room for doubt. Until then, headlines like this will continue to trend and the shadow of suspicion will continue to hang over the villa. This is a moment of reckoning for Nigeria. We are either going to reclaim our country from the grip of criminals, or we are going to watch it satisfy the greed of those who profit from our blood. The choice is that stark. The world is watching, the victims are crying, and history is taking notes. What do you think? Is the presidency truly involved, or is this just political blackmail from the opposition? And do you believe the government has the will to name the sponsors? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We will keep digging, keep asking, and keep reporting until the truth is laid bare.